But moving on now, Syrian authorities say foreign-backed militants executed 21 civilians at close range before leaving eastern Aleppo last week. The authorities said there were bodies of 5 children and 4 women among the victims. The authorities also said the corpses were found in 2 prisons in the militants ran in Aleppo's neighborhoods of Sukkari and Al-Kalase. This came after Russia said its forces has found mass graves in the former militant-held areas of Aleppo. The Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said several dozen bodies were discovered in the graves. He added that some of the bodies were mutilated and others bore signs of brutal torture and gunshots. Aleppo was liberated last week. Back in July, a member of the Al-Zinki terror group also beheaded a 12-year-old Palestinian boy in the area. The U.S. and its allies described the group as Syria's moderate opposition. Let's speak to our correspondent Mohammed Ali now, who joins us live from Damascus. Now, Mohammed, these are the groups that the U.S. and its allies fought very hard till the end to protect, to allow a safe passage from outside eastern Aleppo. You were on the ground. Tell us a bit more.
Yes, exactly. Those are the same militant groups that the West describes and regards as so-called moderate opposition groups. Yet, at the end of the day, those are the same groups that commit massacres and crimes against civilians, whether we're speaking here about Aleppo or any other part of the country during the unrest in Syria. This is not the first time that such massacres happen. Now, we know that in the eastern parts of Aleppo, the areas where the militants left just about a week ago, there was the so-called Nuruddin al-Zinki group, which is considered as a moderate opposition group by the West. However, this same group committed massacres against civilians, beheaded a 12-year-old Palestinian child in Aleppo countryside, the northern countryside. You have also Faylaq al-Sham, you have Ahrar al-Sham. All of those groups also joined forces with the Qaeda-linked al-Nusra Front, which now, of course, is naming itself as Jabhat Fath al-Sham. Now, according to the Syrian government statements previously during the unrest, the Syrian government regards them as all terrorists, because at the end of the day, they always switch names and umbrellas, but at the end of the day, they're all committing the same crimes, the same massacres, and they're all fighting alongside the Al-Qaeda at the end of the day, which is a terrorist group according to the United Nations and the United States. So how come those groups are now considered moderates? Just because they implement perhaps a policy or undermine of course, the Syrian government and attack the Syrian government. So this is why those groups are considered as moderates, because they serve the interests of the West. This is according to many experts here. Now, I was in eastern Aleppo, as you know, just 3 days ago. We returned back. We toured those areas, the eastern parts of Aleppo where militants left, like Al-Sukkari and other areas. We found schools that were turned into prisons. The classrooms were turned into prison cells over there. We found large amounts of weapons, ammunition, large amounts of foodstuff. And now we're hearing now that the Russian Ministry of Defense discovered in Aleppo, in the eastern parts, mass graves, tens of bodies tortured, mutilated, and this is definitely not a surprise. At the end of the day, this is not the first time that we hear terrorists committing such crimes against civilians.
Right now, Mohammed, of course, the cleanup operation, so to speak, of eastern Aleppo right now is underway. Are we to expect more of this kind of news of mass graves and decapitations?
Well, definitely we could expect more and more to be discovered, because at the end of the day, it has been only 3 days since the Syrian army started cleaning up the streets over there and calming them. Now, we were there at the very first 5 hours in the eastern parts of Aleppo when those areas were secured, when terrorists just left over there. There are large numbers of residential buildings where terrorists used to position themselves, many schools over there that were headquarters and military command centers for the terrorists. There are many areas there, buildings, basements that are filled with medicines for those terrorists, for ammunition and weapons depots over there. In addition to, as I told you, foodstuff. Some were provided by the United States, as we saw over there, the logos, and also many were Turkish-made foodstuff. So definitely there are large areas over there in the Al-Sukkari and Ansari and those areas that the terrorists left in the final stage to be calm there. And yes, definitely we could expect to see more and more surprises in those areas, as the terrorists have been positioned there since 2012, and all of the supplies they have are still, many of them are still inside those areas and inside the basements of those residential buildings. Almost in every residential building, in its basement, we found a depot of either weapons, ammunition, or foodstuffs. So definitely more and more surprises could come out as the Syrian army continue calming the streets there.
All right, that's Press TV's Mohammed Ali. They're reporting from Damascus with the very latest. Mohammed, thanks very much indeed for that update.